Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Angela. I am a full-time voiceover artist and audiobook narrator, and my channel is dedicated to those of you that are just getting started out in this wonderful world of voiceover. And through my channel, I share with you some techniques that I use every day in my own voiceover business, and I answer your questions. And so the last couple weeks have been super busy for me. As I've mentioned before in other videos, being a solopreneur or a solo business owner, you need to be in several places at, pretty much all at the same time. So I'm a little bit behind on responding to some of my YouTube questions. So I'm going to go through those with you now. So if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's get into it. Okay, so here are just a few of the recent questions that I have received within the last few days or so that I haven't responded to. And if you want your name removed from this video, just let me know. I'll be happy to do that. But I figured since they're all posted publicly on YouTube as questions that they would be okay to post. But again, let me know if you want your question or name to be removed. Okay, so the first one is from AH, and he asks, can you use the voiceover work or experience for an acting resume? I'm new to being a narrator, voice actor, but what is the potential income a individual could make per year? Those are both very good questions. I would say voiceover work is considered to be acting. You could definitely use voiceover work as acting experience on a resume. Absolutely. I know there are celebrities that do voice acting, and I would bet you anything they use that experience on their resumes as well. So I would definitely use it for sure. New to being a voice actor, but what is the potential income? Well, that could vary. Just with everything else, any kind of business that you start and create from the ground up is going to have probably fluctuating, incomes per year, even from month to month, it could vary. But I could tell you in my first year, I made maybe, and I have to tell you that I hate giving like concrete numbers because sharing personal income information is kind of makes me feel kind of oogie. But I can tell you my first year wasn't fabulous, but the learning that I achieved or everything that I experienced in my first year was just priceless in itself. But I would say that, and just for a little bit of relativity, I was a manager at a car dealership, and so I managed a whole department. So I did okay as far as salary goes, and I'd say by my second year, perhaps, I was matching, if not close to, my annual salary for the car dealership. And now being a full-time voiceover artist, 3.5, almost 4 years later, I am making more than I was at the car dealership. Some months I break even, some months were a little bit below, some months were double. It all depends on, the ebb and flow of the business. So again, having multiple streams of income for any business is always a good idea. If you want to have maybe some other, as I've mentioned before, some other gigs, if you have like a profile on one of these gig marketplaces, have more than one gig available, one for voiceover, of course, or some multiple, for different types of voiceover, and then also have another gig for maybe editing, something else that's sort of related that would keep you busy when you're down, when your voiceover orders are down. So multiple streams of income are always good, but you could definitely make a really great living. I know there are some voiceover artists that are making, 6 figures a year doing this. So there is money to be made, but again, it goes into how much work and time are you willing to put into this, right? You can't just jump in and expect to make a bunch of money without doing a bunch of work. again, this was 7 days ago. What a great topic. And this is in regard to the Beware of Audiobook Scammers video I did. I just joined ACX about a week ago, and I'm just about to do my sample, as this is good to know prior to applying for gigs on ACX. What about responsibilities of a narrator? How not to get sued? Great content. I'm not sure why You would be sued if you're under contract by an author or the rights holder of the book. I don't see why you would be getting sued for narrating the content of that person's book. I'm not exactly sure what you mean about that. But the responsibilities as far as being a narrator, if you do your due diligence and you are assured that this person is the legit owner of that book and that material that you're narrating and that you're going into a contract with to narrate that book, then I would say that you wouldn't be under any kind of risk at all, again, if it is in fact the legitimate owner of that copyrighted material. Um, Lanes says, "Hi, Angela. Can I just record my narration on MP3 and have someone format it for me?" Absolutely. This is in regards to audiobooks. Yes, absolutely. I've mentioned this before in a couple of other videos that if you get to the point where you are very comfortable with formatting and mastering audiobooks, it's always good to consider having a separate gig or pricing format for yourself to offer this service to other people. And this is where this comes in. If you're in a pinch and you're in between books, or you have a very short deadline on a book and you need someone to edit while you narrate, then absolutely you can do that. If you go on to Upwork, Fiverr, any of these freelance marketplaces, you can definitely find an audiobook narrator who can help you with mastering, editing, formatting to get to the proper ACX specs, or any of the other platforms for that matter. So yes, absolutely, you can do that. Arpit says, "Thank you so much for this video. Thank you for watching." AH says, "You have a great radio voice. This helps me out a lot. Just signed up to ACX. Thank you. Have a great weekend." Well, thank you so much, AH, for watching and for the compliment. I usually hear, "You sound like Alexa," or "You sound like Siri." And I know I do. It's a blessing and a curse, but I make it work for me most of the time. C. Harris says, "When singing audiobook narration, what do you use to hold the text before you?" When singing, I'm not sure exactly what you mean, but as far as holding like the copy to read, or what did I read copy from while I was narrating an audiobook, I used to use a tablet. Well, let me back up and say I used to have a very small monitor in the very beginning when I was kind of just still figuring things out and how like logistically to fit everything in this tiny room. So I had a small monitor, and then I had a tablet that I would just kind of pivot my chair off to the side and narrate this way. But I ended up getting a larger monitor where I could fit both the copy, and then I could also see my DAW like in a split screen on the same monitor. So now I just read all of my copy from the monitor directly in front of me, which just makes things a little bit easier, especially if I have to go back in and edit quickly. I mean, I don't do punch and roll. I should do punch and roll while I'm recording, but I don't feel like I'm coordinated enough. And I know some people will say all I got to do is just hit hit the pause button, hit the space bar to stop the recording, but I don't know. I guess I'm set in my ways, but that's what I use. C. Harris again says thanks and sent me a super thanks. Thank you so much for that. That was very kind of you. Tom Freya says, "Good on ya, Angela. This needs to be said. I cringe at the number of content creators that try to convince anyone and everyone that they too can make money through voiceover. It has made it very hard for those who have been in the industry for some time." And that was in regards to what you should know about voiceover before you start. Yeah, I actually saw, where was I? I was on TikTok, I think just a day ago, maybe 2 days ago. And I saw someone that said, "Hey, can you speak English? Do you want to make $1,000 per hour?" And then that's what they did. They talked about going into ACX. And the example that she used was, an audiobook that was point 10, in a completed finished hour. The whole entirety of the book was equal to point 10 hours. And the rate was 400 to 1,000 per finished hour. And she was selling this to people as if it were $400. But even if you are at $400 for that per finished hour rate and you narrated and delivered a point 10 audiobook, that's point 10 of a finished hour. So that is $40, not $400. So unfortunately, I think, and I know a lot of these people are trying to, like me, just help people find a way through this, right? To find a way to earn an income, to put food on the table and to pay the bills. And I understand some of these other people are, that's what they do. They have multiple streams of income and they're trying to help other people. But on the same note, I think sometimes they just grab an idea and run with it without fully understanding the depth or what is really truly involved in that side hustle. And then it just turns into clickbait, unfortunately. So there is a lot of that is causing a little bit of confusion, and I think a lot of people might be jumping into audiobook narration or voiceover thinking that that is the way that it works, when in reality, you have to still audition, you still have to narrate, master, edit, know how to edit, master, and format the audiobook. So there's all of these other little nuances that they just leave out, and unfortunately, I see a lot of those these days that just turn into kind of like clickbait. Anyway. Bobby Cat says, I'm not an author, but I stayed anyway. Well, that particular video, how to choose a narrator for your audiobook, was meant for really for the authors, but narrators, I'm sure a lot of that in there would help you as well. So you're welcome to watch. Bobby also says, sorry I missed this one when it was live. I have notifications turned on now. Oh, that was for the Q&A. Yeah, those are fun. I'm going to have to do another one of those. Bobby again says, great video and good tips on finding your money voice. That was on your What is Your Money Voice? Absolutely. Thank you so much. Colin says, another great video, Angela. And yes, the marathon, not a sprint analogy is so true. Have to admit, if it was for the money, there has to be easier ways. Yeah, for sure. As a writer, reader, and author tuber, words are my passion, and as with any other creative endeavor, continuous learning and self-improvement are vital. Thank you so much for being so real and honest. Well, you're welcome, Colin, and thank you so much for your comment. I appreciate you. Chris B says, perfect reality check, and that was in regards to what you should know about voiceover before you start. Yeah, well, that was my intention because it was some of the stuff that I wish that I had known before I had started, that everything wasn't going to be as easy as other people made it out to be, that there was going to be a lot of work and it wasn't going to happen right away. So that was something that I felt needed to be said. Let's see. Steve says, could you please go over the equipment you need to do this work and approximate cost? I am a complete newbie, although I currently write broadcast copy for a news station. I think I actually have a couple of videos for what equipment you need here on my channel. I believe it's called the equipment you need for audiobook narration or something similar. I'll see if I can put the card up above for you. But the approximate cost could be anywhere from maybe a couple of $100 for a decent microphone and maybe a DAW. Or you could invest a whole lot more. There are, just like everything else, there are so many different variables, so many different types of microphone. There's USB, there's the XLR. If you go with the XLR, like a condenser or like a shotgun mic, then you're going to need an interface. But I would say at least a few $100s for a good DAW, a good microphone, a good set of headphones. But again, I'll put the card up above for the audiobook equipment. Mindreader says, I'm not fond of QuickBooks SE simply because it does not allow the user to enter in reoccurring expenses. You're right. Although I think you can create rules but it really comes down to specific terms. So you can create rules to do, functions X, Y, and Z, but it has to be for a specific income or a specific name that it's attached to. So you can create rules to automatically categorize things that come in or go out. So that might help, but I'm not sure if that's exactly what you're referring to. Amonfi, and I'm sorry if I butchered your name. She says, hi, thank you for all this amazing information. There a way to measure the noise? Oh, is there a way to measure the noise floor of the entire track? I I outside of using ACX's Audio Lab or like a third-party ACX checker, there isn't through Adobe Audition as far as I know, but the best way for me is to just go into, spot check your track, find a few spots in your track where there isn't any dialogue, it's just room tone, and just highlight that section and play that section where you can see the volume bar and just see where that volume bar peaks so you get an idea of what the noise floor is throughout your track. That's what I do anyway. Mm, Isa says, how do you export them as different files? And that's in regard to splitting audio files in Adobe Audition. I typically for e-learning or anything with that I record all on one track and then split into separate files. That could even be for IVR. I will usually highlight the section that I want to make into a separate file, select that section, and then hit copy to new, and then just make it into a new file, and then rename it, file 1, and then the next one, file 2, and then the next one, file 3, or whatever the naming requirements are for your files. And then just send them all either individually or as a zip file or via like a Google Drive folder link or WeTransfer. It depends on how many you have really and where they're going and what their purpose is. But there's a few different ways to do that. War Machine says, hi, everybody. I've been flirting with narrating an audiobook not for a client, and the only computer I have with sufficient software for this type of work is an old Lenovo PC with the full Adobe CS3 lineup. So Premiere Pro and Soundbooth CS3 are available on there. Can I manage good results with these older versions? I don't really know. When I started with this business, I only had Creative Cloud was available to me at the time. So that's what I've only worked with. I know there are a few people that still use some of the older versions of Adobe Audition before it was Adobe Audition. However, I don't know how far you're going to be able to get without having a current version. And plus, the current versions are, especially the Creative Cloud, right? The current versions are continually updated with new features and effects and new or more that you can do with it. And it's continually being upgraded and improved all the time. So I'm not entirely sure. I'm sure you could get started with an older version, but I don't know how far it's going to be able to take you. Not to mention the most current version has, all of the great effects that really help voiceover artists right out of the box, like the denoise, there's a de-reverb, there's the noise reduction process, there's a lot of little things like the parametric equalizer, and the presets. There's a lot of presets that come directly with Adobe Audition in Creative Cloud that are very voiceover specific, so they're usually a great place to start and then tweak so it matches your space and your voice. So again, I'm not sure, but if you could update us on what you decided to do, that would be very interesting to know. Louie says, Angela, hi. What's the most amount of samples you've given for a single character voice? I think for me, it was like 15 variations. Wow. I don't think I've ever done 15 variations of a character voice. I usually have really long conversations with my clients before I start in trying to get an idea of what they want it to sound like. Usually I'll ask for if they have something similar that they've heard that they'd like their character to sound like. If they have a picture of the character, that usually helps to develop, like if you see their face, their facial features help develop the voice. Because if they have maybe no teeth, then you're gonna have to work on making them sound like they have no teeth, a big nose, so on and so forth. So if you have a picture of the character that you're trying to develop a voice for, and then you have an idea of what the client is looking for, then that usually helps narrow it down to maybe 3 or 4. I think for me, I've given maybe 4 or 5 different variations of a character voice, and I think that was for an alien. And then in the end, we ended up going with a sound effect through Adobe Audition that was kind of like a phaser effect. So Actually, the character was speaking through like a voice modulator, so that's why it had to sound sort of robotic, but it was kind of cool. But 15, that's a lot. I hope you guys narrowed it down. All right, guys, that was me going through some of my most recent comments. I think I went back a little bit further than I intended to, but those were some really great questions. I really appreciate you guys. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. I really appreciate that. If you'd like more information about me, my work, or how I can help you get started in voiceover, visit my website, voiceoverangela.com. Thank you so much for your time, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.